Just like Job's not-so-helpful friends, we struggle in knowing what to say to an individual who has had to deal with the shock of who they thought they were married to wasn't completely real. This segment will address the complex process of forgiveness. As Matt will explain, many well-meaning church leaders simply aren't equipped to support betrayed partners. Matt prepares leaders like you to navigate through this difficult relational issue.
The initial response of church leaders to those who are experiencing betrayal can shape the whole healing process, positively or negatively. What can we do to make sure that we're prepared to meet the moment and to not do more harm to someone who is reeling? Let me tell you a story. A leader within your church has met with a man. He's struggling with porn. He's met with him a few times. The man initially felt relieved to confess to someone who has made small progress, and he's attending a support meeting and utilizing accountability software, but the conversation has turned towards his spouse. She knows, and she is angry with him. He says even though she found out weeks ago, months ago, she won't let it go. She brings it up all the time. She glares at him in passing, giving him the silent treatment, and cries in front of the kids. He says, "This is so shaming. She knows how bad I feel. I've repented to her. I'm afraid that the shame and guilt that she makes me feel will drive me back into porn. I haven't stumbled in weeks. When is she going to forgive me or give me credit? When is she going to forgive me? I don't know what to do." Well, the leader is concerned about this behavior, and it doesn't seem very Christ-like. I mean, it's just porn. He asks for a meeting with the couple, and when they arrive, he notices that the partner is shaking, perhaps with anger, he thinks. There's an odd look in her eyes. And after a moment, he opens his Bible to Ephesians 4:32 and reads aloud to them, "Be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." He looks up and he sees the woman's head fall and her shoulders slump. Imagine this, though, from her perspective. A few weeks ago, she found out that her spouse has been looking at porn, maybe for years. So many things have started to make sense. Why he's always up late at night, why he's always tired, staying late at work, why he has been distant and they rarely have sex. She wonders, how long has this really gone on? Her whole marriage feels like a lie. She's replaying conversations about excuses he's made and feels stupid for having believed all of his lies when in her gut, she knew something was wrong. When she caught him, he immediately began defending himself and even blamed her for not having enough sex with him, gaining weight. He told her it was only a one-time thing, but when she looked on her computer, she found evidence of so much more that made her sad, angry, confused, nauseous, and numb. He had lied. Well, what else was he lying about? Stunned and at a loss, she can barely function day to day and sometimes just begins crying without warning. She can barely look at her husband, and when she can, even get the strength to tell him how she feels, he says he's sorry and talks in circles and always finds a way to twist things around and make her feel guilty for being angry. He says she isn't forgiving him, but she's still trying to make sense of what has even happened. When she said the church leader wanted to talk with them as a couple, she couldn't identify what she felt. Scared, but hopeful. Some misplaced shame. But maybe this leader could hear her, help her. If they could just hear her. Entering the office, she could barely control the shaking in her body as she tries to calm herself so she can even talk. But after just a few moments, she is lost again, feeling blamed again, not good enough again, and wonders, is this really my fault? This is not fiction. I've heard a version of this story so many times from partners as they recount what they endured from well-meaning leaders in the church that are not always aware of or prepared for what partners are experiencing. They feel like they have lost so much and now feel like they have lost the support of their church too. But maybe you're thinking, well, the leader was a little clumsy, but he wasn't totally wrong. I mean, forgiveness is called for, right? Well, let's take a few minutes to examine this passage that he read to see how we might approach this situation differently. I think something that is often missed when Ephesians 4:32 and other verses like it are used this way, well, it's the end. As God in Christ forgave you. Forgive others as God in Christ forgave you. Well, how did God forgive us? He didn't ignore our sin. He didn't wink at it. He didn't give us a pass. He bore it in his body, tortured on the cross. See, forgiveness has a cost. If a friend stole something of value from you and pawned it, then admitted it and sought forgiveness, it would be fair to ask to be compensated. But let's say you're feeling gracious and you don't. You're still out the item and you're out the money. And in a sense, you would choose to carry those debts yourself to forgive that person. That's what happens on a deep, painful, psychological, somatic, and spiritual level when someone is working to forgive betrayal. They are bearing in their body the cost. Forgiveness in this context is not a moment where all is wiped clean, a fresh start, or a do-over. It's a journey. It's a process. Any other way of approaching it would minimize the damage that was done and the cost of that process. Imagine this. An adult person is working on a large jigsaw puzzle, 10,000 pieces. And that puzzle is their self, their identity, their world. And as an adult, the puzzle is almost complete. Then their betrayer comes into the room and flips the table over. Pieces are flying everywhere. Some are under the couch. Others have slid into the other room. The upturned table has actually knocked another puzzle off the shelf too, and now there's pieces all mixed in. And they're on their hands and knees, distraught, trying to sort out the pieces and put the puzzle back together. And all the while, the betrayer stands over them saying, "Clean this up. Come on. Forgive me. Come on, hurry up." See, often addicts say they want forgiveness, but what they mean is absolution, a release from all guilt or consequences. In other words, to be treated normally, like nothing even happened. And that is just not fair, to expect that someone who is working to make sense of their life, understand the scope of the damage, and grieve the loss of what they thought they had. If we want to be prepared to support betrayed partners, we need to be prepared to get down on our hands and knees and help them sort through the mess, to be kind and tender-hearted towards them as they work through the process of grief and forgiveness. So if we were to retell that story, perhaps the church leader would do things differently. to challenge the perspective of the betrayer on the front end. And when it came time to the meeting with the spouse, he might begin by listening and validating their experience, grieving with them. This situation is not what they wanted or expected or asked for or dreamed that could happen to them. The leader might prompt the husband to acknowledge the hurt that was caused or step into the partner's shoes to feel what they felt. They would probably be ready with a referral for a counselor who's experienced and trained to handle betrayal. You see, the initial response of a church leader to those experiencing betrayal can shape the whole healing process. As the church, let's be prepared to meet the moment and not do more harm.